Very good Thursday evening to all our viewers. Welcome. This is Prime Time News. We are coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. Bringing you the news tonight, I am Joel Outskun together with our interpreter Brian De Cruz. Without further delay, let's take a look at our headlines for tonight.
Final rites of Most Venerable Kotugoda Dhammawasa Thero performed at Independence Square. No one is permitted to commit environmental destruction, says President while urging authorities to take action.
කොහේ හරි තියෙන අක්කර ගානක් කැලෑ සුද්ධ කරන්න දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද? එහෙමනම් වනජීවි වන රක්ෂණ ඒ නියෝජිතව මොනවද කරන්නේ?
Foreign Minister informs the government's stance on the UNHRC resolution.
Sri Lanka considers the draft resolution to be unwarranted, unjustified, and a violation of the relevant articles of the United Nations Charter.
Will Devi Balika Vidyalaya in Colombo be shifted to Udahamulla? Navy detains 54 Indians for poaching in Sri Lankan waters.
On to our top story this evening, the final rites of the Mahanayaka of the Sri Lanka Amarapura sect, Most Venerable Agamaha Pandita Kotugoda Dhammawasa Thero, was carried out with full state honours at the Independence Square in Colombo this evening.
The funeral entourage of the late Mahanayaka of the Sri Lanka Amarapura sect proceeded towards Independence Square from the Dharmapala Rama temple in Mount Lavinia. The chief prelates of the three sects and the other religious leaders attended the final rites after the remains of the late Mahanayaka were brought to Independence Square at 3:30 p.m. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, former President Maithripala Sirisena, Speaker Mahinda Yapa, opposition leaders Sajith Premadasa and senior diplomats were among those present during the ceremony. The President and the opposition leader delivered their condolence messages after religious rites were performed during the ceremony. The remains of Most Venerable Agamaha Pandita Kotugoda Dhammawasa Thero were cremated afterwards. Most Venerable Agamaha Pandita Kotugoda Dhammawasa Thero, may you attain the bliss of Nibbana.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has said that permission has not been granted to cut down trees or to carry out deforestation in the country. The President made these remarks during an event organized by some affiliated groups of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna at the Wetland Park in Nugegoda.
I organized a meeting with district secretaries today. I told them not to misunderstand the context of my statements. I reached out to the people more during the parliamentary election when compared to the presidential election. We organized more meetings than rallies. The concern that was raised in all districts is the loss of lands. They had faced injustices as land boundaries were demarcated based on Google Maps. This issue was raised in several areas. There must be a reason for this to be raised across the country. This was brought up during the discussion with the village program in all districts as well. On a policy basis, I called on the Forest Conservation Department, the Wildlife Department and the Lands Ministry to look at this problem from a practical angle. I asked them to inquire whether this is true and to rectify this situation if that is the case. When people put forward their problems, it is the government's duty to address them. When a matter is brought up before the President, we must provide them with a solution. But we must deal with this practically. Simply because such matters are raised, we cannot allow thousands of acres of forest land to be cleared. What are forest conservation officials doing? Can they give away lands like this? Now I have instructed district secretaries to stop such activities if they are taking place and also to catch the suspects. There might be individuals who cut down trees in a discreet manner. These are not problems that have emerged out of the blues. These are activities that have been taking place for a long period. Such individuals cut down trees for timber. I request the officials to arrest this situation immediately.
ඒවන් වහාම නතර කරන්න එක තමයි නිලධාරීන් ඉන්නේ.
The Hayagala is home to a unique ecosystem. The wild elephants use this area as a corridor to travel between Bogahapitia and Udawalawa to source their food. The Hayagala, which spans across an area of 26.8 square kilometers, was declared a sanctuary on the 7th of July 2002. The youth front of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna today visited the site and witnessed how the area was being prepared for a new project. In line with the plan, sand is being excavated for the construction of a wall surrounding the Uma Oil Reserve. The group contacted the engineer in charge of the project with the assistance of an individual present at the site.
පාරක් මේ කපනවා දැන් ඊළඟ පස් ටික ගෙනියන්න කියලා. එතකොට දැන් මේක අර 10 රක්ෂිතේනේ මොකද්ද එතකොට මෙතන මේ සිදු වෙන්නේ? 10 නෙවෙයි. මෙතන ඉන්නේ කොහොමද බලන්නේ? අපි මෙතන මේ රක්ෂිතේම මෙතන අර මාය ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකේ ඩෑම් එකක් හදනවා කුඩා ඔය. දැන් ඩෑම් එක ගැන දන්නවා. ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ මේ මෙතන රක්ෂිතේන් පස් කපන එක මොකද්ද මේ මේක මේ එතකොට මේකට මොකක් හරි ඔබතුමාලා වෙනම ගත්ත අවසරයක් කොහොමද දෙන්නේ මේකට? වගේ සාමාන්‍ය එයාලට දැන්ටත් කරගෙන යන්නේ වගේ ඔව් උඩ පස්ටික් විතර කරගෙන ඊට පස්සේ තිබ්බ විදිහට ඉඩම හදලා දෙන එක විතරයි කරන්නේ නෑ මම එතකොට මං අහන්නේ මේ දැන් මෙතන මේ ඉඩමේ මේ විදිහට පස් කපන්නත් ඒ වගේම මේ වගේ පාරක් කපන්නත් ඔබතුමාලට නීත්‍යානුකූල අවසරයක් තියෙනවද කියලා මං අහන්නේ ඒ කියන්නේ විශේෂ අවසර නෑ අපි ඒක තමයි එහෙම නැතුව පස් කපන්න බෑනේ අපි දැන් ඔය ගේන්න නම් අපි මෙතන ඩිපාර්ට්මන්ට් එකනේ අපුමතරන එලහරා තමයි පස් අරගෙන එකක් කරන්නේ. දැන් ඔය එල කපලා තියෙන්නේ ඒකත් මේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකේම කොටසක් තමයි. ඔව්. ඒක එලබන්ට් එක දිගේ තමයි අපි අරගෙන ඉන්නේ. නමුත් මේ පාර හදන්නේ එලබන්ට් එක නෙමෙයි. ඔව් ඒක පොඩ්ඩක් ඒ කියන්නේ සාමාන්‍ය ප්‍රධාන පාරක තමයි වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක තමයි කතාව.
The group representing the JVP also witnessed another construction that was being built for the usage of those engaged in another project.
කොයිද කොළඹ තින්නේ මහත්තයා? කොළඹ වැඩට ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්න කට්ටිය. මෙතන වාඩියක් ගහන්න යන්නේ. මේක දන්නවනේ මොකද්ද කියලා මේ. මේ 10 ගල රක්ෂිතය කියලා ඔයාලා දන්නවද මේ? මේක අලිමංකඩ. එතකොට මේක 2002 තමයි මේක කැසට් කරලා තියෙන්නේ අපේ භූමියක් ලෙස. එතකොට මේක කිසිදු ඉදිකිරීමක් කරන්න බෑ. ඒත් තමයි දැන් මේ ඉදිකිරීම වෙන්නේ. දැන් ගෝඨාභය මහත්තයා දිගටම කියනවා දැන් මේ වන විනාශයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. අපි දිගටම මේක කියනවා නෑ එහෙම වෙනවා කියලා. දැන් වෙන දේ තමයි රැට දැන් ඇවිල්ලා මේ කැලේ සුද්ධ කරන අරගෙන තියෙනවා. අපි ආවේ මොකද්ද මේ වෙන්නේ කියන එක බලන්න.
The Sri Lanka National Commission for UNESCO has said that Minister Chamal Rajapaksa had agreed to seek alternatives instead of constructing reservoirs in the Singharaja forest, which is considered a World Heritage Site. According to the Commission, the construction of the reservoirs will affect nearly 4 hectares of land in Singharaja. The proposed reservoir would be constructed in the Madugate area in Lankagama by diverting the Ging River. Meanwhile, satellite imagery of the Singharaja Forest Reserve on Google Maps indicates several areas lacking forest cover. What are these areas?
What is taking place in Madugate is that the bunt is located outside Singharaja. However, the reservoir that benefits from various water sources is located within Singharaja. Then there is an issue as this is a World Heritage Site. There are several laws on the protection of a World Heritage Site. Any form of destruction cannot take place on a World Heritage Site. Such areas must be protected. If the project is of utmost importance, the World Heritage Committee must be informed about it. We have informed them, but I feel that they will not permit it. That is because it will cause some form of damage. We cannot prevent that. Therefore, we met Minister Chamal Rajapaksa and explained the situation to him. The irrigation engineers have been asked to seek alternatives. They are acting in line with that.
What would be the repercussions of diverting waterways near Singharaja due to the Gin-Nilwala project? According to the statements made by Minister Chamal Rajapaksa, the project will be carried out by China. If China constructs 2 reservoirs after diverting the Gin and Nilwala rivers, wouldn't they be allowed to control the supply of water to the people in low-lying areas? Recently, Newsfirst reported on China's water blackmail practice that has affected several nations in the recent past. According to a report in the Harvard International Review, the diversion of water could have grave implications for the livelihoods of almost half of the world's population in South and Southeast Asia. The report adds that China has established control over the rivers Brahmaputra, Irrawaddy and Mekong rivers in the Tibetan Plateau. Will the proposed Gin-Nilwala project make Sri Lanka fall prey to China's water blackmail approach?
We agreed that the people of Hambantota must receive access to water. But didn't they construct the Lunugam-Vehera reservoir to supply water to the people of Hambantota? They then said that the water was insufficient. They constructed the Veheragala reservoir and then also carried out a project to supply water to Hambantota by diverting the Manik River through Yala. What did they do after that? In 2008, Chamal Rajapaksa laid the foundation for the Uma Oya project by separating the eastern and southern slopes of the central hills. But did this serve a purpose? It affected more than 12,500 houses and deprived more than 15,000 acres of cultivation lands from access to water. More than 7,500 water bodies, including wells, ponds, streams and rivers had dried up as well. A case was filed at the Supreme Court. Compensation amounting to millions was paid as well. Today we are facing the repercussions of this disastrous project. Landslides have aggravated. Against such a backdrop, Chamal Rajapaksa is saying that 2 wavers would be constructed in Singharaja, that is a World Heritage Site, to supply water to Hambantota. They are not attempting to supply water to the people through these projects. Lands in Hambantota have been given away to their henchmen who are running companies in that area to fulfill their dream of establishing a capital. It is these entities that will receive water. We are of the opinion that the central region is the heart of the country. Apart from the damages caused to this region, they are also attempting to destroy the Singharaja World Heritage Site, the forests and rivers as well. This must not be allowed.
State Minister Nalaka Godaheva responded to questions raised in Parliament yesterday by Anura Kumara Dissanayaka on the decision to lease out the Colombo Arcade Independence Square to a private company.
Although a monthly income of 10 million was generated in 2014, the generation of income had dwindled drastically since 2015. Eventually, it fell below 8.5 million. But there was a worse problem. When we came into power in 2019, the Urban Development Authority was due to recover more than 100 million rupees. 11 out of the 42 shops in the facility had been closed down. After considering this situation, the Executive Board of the Urban Development Authority decided to hand over the management of this facility to a private entity in order to generate more income. The annual rent of this facility has been estimated at around 120 million rupees. In response to a paper advertisement, several companies submitted tenders within the 4-week period granted for investors to place bids. The 2 companies that placed bids were Udel PLC and Abans PLC. The technical committee studied their tenders and then decided to choose Udel PLC, which had fulfilled the criteria. The procurement committee had unanimously agreed to approve the tender for this company as well.
The State Minister and the relevant officials then convened a media briefing at the Ministry of Urban Development.
Million 800ක් වගේ වියදමක් ගියා. මේක අක්කර 4ක්. ගොඩනැගිලි කීපයක්. එතකොට මුළු ඉඩමම දෙනවද? අක්කර 4ම දෙනවද මේක? 4ම කියන්නේ මේකේ ගොඩනැගිලිනේ දෙන්නේ. මේකේ බිම අර බිම දෙන්නේ නැහැ. බිම ඕන විදියට
This area comprises buildings. The rest of the land area will be allowed to be used by the public. There are fish tanks and other facilities as well. Therefore, we have imposed conditions. They can only maintain 42 shops and collect the rent.
සාප්පු 42 කළමනාකරණය කරගෙන නඩත්තු කරගෙන කුලී එකතු කරගෙන යන්න විතරයි පුළුවන්. ඔබතුමාලා ප්‍රකාශ කරා දැන් මේ නඩත්තු කටයුතු සිදු වෙලා නැහැ කියලා. නඩත්තු කටයුතු වලට වඩා මේකේ තියෙන්නේ කළමනාකරණය කියන්නේ. මේකේ මැනේජ්මන්ට් එක හරියට කරේ නැහැ. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒව කළා නැහැ.
හරියට සිද්ධ වුණේ නැහැ. ඔක අපි ඉන්නේ
කළමනාකරණය නඩත්තුව හරියට වුණේ නැහැ.
නිකන් හිටියා. ඒ කාලේ අපි හෝටල් වල ඉඳලා බස් වලින් ගෙනාව ටූරිස්ට්ලා සංචාරකයෝ උතෙන්ට. ගෙනල්ලා ආපහු උතන ඉවරුණාන් පස්සේ ආපහු ගිහලා බැස්සුවා.
පුතුමාගේ සෞභාග්‍ය දැක්කේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශනයේ තියෙන්නේ පෞද්ගලීකරණය කරන්නේ නැහැ කියලා.
සෞභාග්‍ය දැක්මේ තියෙනවා PPP model, private public partnership. හරි ඒක තමයි තියෙන්නේ. අපි කියලා නෑ පෞද්ගලික දැන් මේක පෞද්ගලික කියලා නෑ මේක තියෙන්නේ PPP models.
මේක මේ විදිහට පාඩු ලැබුවා යම්කිසි පෞද්ගලික ආයතනයක් එක්කලා ගනුදෙනු කරනවා කියන්න ඇයි ඔබතුමාලා මේක පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට කලින් ගෙනාවේ නැත්තේ?
රාජ්‍ය ආයතන තියෙනවා 300ක් විතර වගේ.
There are about 300 state entities. If the daily activities of all these authorities are brought before Parliament, then the Parliament won't be able to focus on other matters. This is a small transaction.
වෙන වැඩක් කරන්න හම්බෙන්නේ මේක ඉතාමත්ම පොඩි ගනුදෙනුවක්.
Meanwhile, the former Minister of the Urban Development Authority, Patali Champika Ranawaka, expressed these views during a media briefing held today.
ඒ සඳහා මගේ මතකයේ හැටියට රුපියල් මිලියන 650කට අධික ප්‍රමාණයක් වියදම් කළා ආණ්ඩුව. අපේ පාලන කාලෙත්
The government has allocated 650 million rupees for this. Although several proposals for the shopping complex came in during the time of our government, we did not accept any of them. The current government has decided to give this shopping complex away to its henchmen without a due process. The President and the Prime Minister should be ashamed of this. Based on the word given by the ruling faction to the citizens of this country, this facility is not a public asset that can be given away without calling for tenders. If this continues, they will not hesitate to lease out the Independence Square as well. The priority of this government is to build the businesses of its henchmen. It has also been reported that the government is planning on selling off the Bank of Ceylon headquarters, People's Bank headquarters, Air Force headquarters, the Slave-Island Police and the Sri Lanka Army Electrical and Mechanical Engineers Regiment. They are also targeting the local system of schools including Devi Balika Vidyalaya. We will not let this happen.
දේවි බාලිකා විද්‍යාලය ඇතුළු පාසල් පද්ධතියටත් අත තියන්න යන බවට වාර්තා පළ වෙලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මේවා මේ රටේ අනාගතේ කරන්න හම්බ වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
You're with Prime Time News. Up next is Action TV.
Since 2020, Nugegoda Mahamaya Balika Vidyalaya, located within the perimeters of the Sri Jayawardhanapura Educational Zone, has been facing difficulties in conducting 13 classes. This is following an engineer's recommendation that the building housing these classes is in an unsafe condition. The Provincial Education Department provided a solution to this problem in February. The solution was to allocate certain buildings in Nugegoda Vijayarama Vidyalaya to house the classes of Mahamaya Vidyalaya. Accordingly, parents of Mahamaya Balika Vidyalaya had taken steps to refurbish these classrooms to facilitate the learning process of their children. Vijayarama Mahavidyalaya, located on a land spanning 4.5 acres, currently has a population of 71 students. The allocation of classrooms in Vijayarama Vidyalaya can be justified as its students are enrolled in Mahamaya Balika Vidyalaya upon completing their primary education. However, parliamentarian Madhuru Vithanage has said that the decision to allocate classes in Vijayarama Vidyalaya to cover up for the shortage of classes in Mahamaya Balika Vidyalaya cannot be justified. We have learnt of attempts to merge this school with Mahamaya Balika Vidyalaya that falls under a separate local authority, but Mahamaya Balika is located in Maharagama. The distance between both these schools is 1.5 kilometers. Therefore, it is not practical. According to a complaint filed by the principal of Vijayarama Mahavidyalaya with the Mirihana police on the 1st of March, MP Madhuru Vithanage was among a group that had forcibly broken into the school the previous day. The complaint also identifies Dilip Javira and Damika Pereira as individuals who had broken into the school on the 28th of February. 2 weeks after the incident, the Education Secretary had addressed a letter to the Western Province Governor informing him of a proposal to use the classrooms in Nugegoda Vijayarama Vidyalaya to fill the shortage of classrooms in Colombo Devi Balika Vidyalaya. But the Education Secretary has not elaborated further on the details of this proposal. However, he notes that a businessman has expressed interest to develop Vijayarama Vidyalaya after merging it with Devi Balika Vidyalaya. The Governor's comments on this letter indicate the urgency of a certain individual or an entity to go ahead with the proposal. 3 days after receiving this letter, the governor had expressed written agreement on implementing the project. However, the distance between Devi Balika Vidyalaya in Borella and Vijayarama Vidyalaya in Nogegoda does not make the proposal of merging the two schools a feasible one. At the same time, it is unethical for the central government to acquire a school that belongs to a provincial council without any form of inquiry, especially when provincial councils are defunct. The support rendered by external parties for the development of education is a service to this nation. However, is this the case in the urgency shown by a certain businessman to merge Devi Balika Vidyalaya with Vijayarama Vidyalaya? Action TV will maintain a close watch on this matter. MP Patali Champika Ranawaka expressed these views on the sugar scam during a media briefing today.
ඒ වාර්තාවේ මේ මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශෙම කියලා තියෙනවා රජයට සිදුවෙච්ච පාඩුව බිලියන 16කට ආසන්න ප්‍රමාණයක්.
In a report, the Finance Ministry has identified the loss as approximately 16 billion. If a former finance minister has been remanded over the bond scam, then charges must be filed against officials including the finance secretary and the finance minister over this scam as well. These corrupt businessmen, officials and politicians will be punished under our administration.
මේ සඳහා මග පාදපු නිලධාරීන්ටත් දේශපාලඥයින්ටත් දඬුවම් දීමේ ක්‍රියාවලියක් යනවා.
Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena delivered a special address in Parliament on the United Nations Human Rights Council today.
මේ කරන පැමිණිලි දියා පරීක්ෂණයක් සොයාබැලීමක් තොරතුරු සොයීමක් නැතුව
This resolution has been adopted only based on accusations instead of conducting an investigation or a fact-finding mission. I can divide this report into two sections. The first is on investigating complaints based on the loss of lives during the final stages of the war. The second is the accusations leveled against the administration of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was elected into power after recording a massive victory. This is not about reporting facts on the country's internal affairs or human rights to the Human Rights Council. There might be certain paragraphs that can cause delight among the opposition. We reject these moves to interfere in Sri Lanka's internal affairs. The Human Rights Council does not have the mandate to do this. The report contains 17.5 pages. Out of the 17.5 pages, only 2 pages mention about the war. The remaining 15 pages are based on the harassment of minority communities and the suppression of democracy and media freedom since Gotabaya Rajapaksa became president. It was the incumbent Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa who introduced us to the Human Rights Council. He took Sri Lanka to the international forum with a list of disappeared individuals.
It is implicit from the voting result that a majority of the council did not support the resolution. At this meeting, Sri Lanka, as a country concerned, reiterated its position on this resolution against the country and politically motivated process behind it. Honourable Speaker, Sri Lanka considers the draft resolution to be unwarranted, unjustified and the violation of the relevant articles of the United Nations Charter, in particular Article 2, 7 and the relevant sections of the United Nations Resolution 60/251 that provides for the mandate of the Human Rights Council. For the above reasons, this resolution against Sri Lanka is illegal.
Whether we like it or not, a majority voted in favour of the resolution. But Honourable Speaker, let us consider the presidential election results based on Dinesh Gunawardena's calculations. Gotabaya Rajapaksa received 6.9 million votes. I received 5.5 million. 2.7 million people abstained from voting. Based on Dinesh Gunawardena's calculations, Gotabaya Rajapaksa could not have won this election. It is Sajith Premadasa who should have won. I wish to ask the government whether this is their latest formula.
Gotabaya Rajapaksa මැතිතුමාට ජනාධිපතිවරයා වීමට සුදුසුකමක් නැහැ. ඇත්තටම සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස තමයි ජයග්‍රහණය කළ දෙන්නේ. මම අහන්න කැමතියි මේකද නව රජයේ වියත් සූත්‍රය.
විරුද්ධ පක්ෂයේ නායකතුමා දන්නවා
The opposition leader knows that the presidential election results are issued under a law. I wish to question the opposition leader on his allegiance. Are you in favour or against Sri Lanka? Your government at that time managed to secure a record number of votes in favour at the Human Rights Council. It was Dayan Jatilaka who spearheaded this victory. But what did the government do in return? They sacked him after that session. We have lost all resolutions since then. A majority of the resolution, that is about 80 or 85%, focuses only on the violation of democracy, the suppression of media freedom and the witch hunt against media institutions. We express our regret over this loss. That is because we don't engage in politics by simply blaming one another. We will not go before international organizations and complain against the government to cause their downfall. We have never done that as well. We don't hope to do that either. However, blaming the opposition for their mistakes is wrong. Meanwhile, senior Congress leader P. Chidambaran demanded the resignation of Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Twitter today. He also said that abstaining from the UN Human Rights Council vote on Sri Lanka is a quote-unquote gross betrayal of the Tamil people. Meanwhile, the Navy seized 5 Indian fishing vessels along with 54 Indian nationals while poaching close to Sri Lankan waters. The North Central Naval Command took hold of 2 Indian fishing vessels with 20 personnel for engaging in trawling in Sri Lankan territorial waters, about 7 nautical miles off Pesale, Mena and 5 nautical miles off the Iranthievu Islands. In the same vein, the Eastern Naval Command seized 2 Indian fishing vessels with 20 personnel and their fishing accessories between 7.5 and 8.5 nautical miles of Mullaitivu. Issuing a statement in this regard, the Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka said that issues associated with Indian fishermen will be dealt in a humanitarian manner. The High Commission assured that providing immediate consular access and emergency supplies to apprehended fishermen are of prime importance. The statement added that bilateral mechanisms are in place to comprehensively address all matters related to fisheries.
8 tugboats are working to free a large container ship, the Ever Given, stuck in Egypt's Suez Canal, halting marine traffic throughout one of the busiest and most important waterways in the world. Now, experts opine that the container ship stuck in the Suez Canal will have an effect on Sri Lanka's logistics sector.
President of the Ceylon Association of Shipping Agents, Ikram Kutilan, said that the container ship stuck in the Suez Canal will have an effect on Sri Lanka's logistics sector as it may cause delays in cargo arrival and shipping to and from Colombo. The container ship entered the crucial east-west trade route on Tuesday morning and ran into trouble when it was approximately 9 nautical miles from the southern end of the estuary. The senior canal pilot at the Suez Canal Authority said the disruption of navigation is expected to cause ship congestion, which takes 2 to 3 days to normally restore traffic order. The impact on oil and gas flows will depend on how long it takes to clear the container ship. Ashok Sharma, managing director of Singapore-based shipbroker BRS Baxi, said, quote, "If it extends to say weeks, it will of course disrupt all shipping in a major way," unquote.
Newsfirst has repeatedly exposed multiple occasions in which the administrators of cricket had wasted funds that could have been used for the development of the game. However, officials have continued to turn a blind eye towards such revelations that have been made over the years. This report highlights several irregularities involved in the construction of the Suryavava Stadium. An audit report had recently revealed that Sri Lanka Cricket had misused funds that should have been used for the development of cricket by choosing to spend them on infrastructure development. Sri Lanka Cricket had handed over its financial statement to sports clubs during its annual general meeting last year. The financial statements covers several details pertaining to the construction of the Mahinda Rajapaksa International Cricket Stadium in Hambantota. In the notes of its financial statements, Sri Lanka Cricket says it did not have any intention to construct an international cricket stadium in Suryavava. It adds, however, that the decision to construct the international stadium was reached consequent to a meeting held on the 5th of May 2009, which was attended by members of the SLC Interim Committee and headed by the then President. According to the financial statements, the then Secretary of the Sri Lanka Cricket was Nishant Ranatunga. The notes to Sri Lanka Cricket's financial statements adds that SLC had incorporated the cost of the Mahinda Rajapaksa International Cricket Stadium as 4.28 billion rupees into its financials as at the 30th of June 2011. The figure includes rupees 914 million for the work performed by the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. The financial report also highlights a lack of evidence of adherence to due process and internal controls. It adds that no interim payment certificates were available for final bill amounting to 2.2 billion rupees, although such payment certificates should be signed off as per the internal controls and due process of SLC. The notes to SLC's financial statements goes on to note that on the 27th of January 2016, the Sri Lanka Ports Authority had forwarded a letter to SLC enclosing a letter that had been addressed to the Minister of Ports and Shipping from the China Harbour Engineering Company. In the enclosed letter, China Harbour had claimed a further amount of 5.027 billion rupees, which includes interest of 2.07 billion rupees outstanding up to July 2015. Who should bear the primary responsibility of this matter? What would be the fate of cricket if such individuals are allowed to be involved in its administration over and over again? And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. Thank you very much. We leave you tonight with the views expressed by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa about the environment in Nugegoda yesterday. Good night.
The epilogue.
විශේෂයෙන්ම ජනාධිපතිවරයාට ප්‍රශ්නයක් ගෙනාවා.
When a matter is brought up before the President, we must provide them with a solution. But we must deal with this practically. Simply because such matters are raised, we cannot allow thousands of acres of forest land to be cleared. What are forest conservation officials doing? Can they give away lands like this? Now I have instructed district secretaries to stop such activities if they are taking place, and also to catch the suspects. There might be individuals who cut down trees in a discreet manner. These are not problems that have emerged out of the blues. These are activities that have been taking place for a long period. Such individuals cut down trees for timber. I request the officials to arrest this situation immediately.
ගස් කපන මිනිස්සු ඒවා වහාම නතර කරන්න එක තමයි නිලධාරීන් ඉන්නේ.
As stressed by the President, is it not the responsibility of state officials to inquire into this matter at grassroots levels and enforce legal action against the wrongdoers?
The epilogue.